Hello, and thank you for joining us here in CloudChats. I'm Pat Martinez with Leadership in the Clouds. We're a management consulting firm. I don't have the background on, it's natural today. So if you want to visit us to learn more, visit us at www.leadershipintheclouds.com. I have the great privilege of interviewing another one of our members of the Alliance, Maria Garza, Maria C Garza. She's with us now. She's going to join us by iPhone. Hi, Maria. You want to turn on your phone, your camera? Hey there.
How are you?
I'm doing well. Where are you speaking from today? Florida or North Carolina?
I am in North Carolina today. It's beautiful, and as you know, it's hot.
Yeah, it is hot. Tell me, Maria, I know that I know who you are. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Take a few minutes to introduce yourself to those that are watching and tell us who you are.
Well, thank you, Pat. First of all, what a pleasure to be here joining your audience. And I commend you and I congratulate you for your success in this medium. You were ahead of the curve before anybody else was on the cloud. You were in the clouds already doing your great work. So thank you for inviting me. Thank you for having me over. Well, I've done a wonderful things in life from being an administrator in local county setup like Miami-Dade County, later on working at the national level, working for Unidos US, formerly National Council of La Raza, as well as working at the White House, then being the CEO of an international organization that was concentrating on expanding the dialogue of leadership and inclusion throughout Latin America, right? And recently I was a CEO of a large nonprofit organization, and I am in the best time of my life, Pat Martinez. I am now putting together an incredible coaching training, where I will lead aspiring CEOs to acquire that millionaire mindset and get their own chair, put it at the table, and claim their success, because there are so many, especially women, but in general, many individuals who have been in the mid-level managers, right? Or even at the C-suite, but have not had an opportunity to become the CEO. I have almost 10 years of experience as a CEO and have learned a thing or two, and I want to share that with aspiring CEOs.
So you want to pay it forward as you always do, and I think that's amazing. When we're scaling up our companies, we're very myopic. I have my own
Right.
company and I have to have people, I take a breath and I step back and we're having a strategic planning meeting. I know that you're very much keen on the strategic planning, but
Yep.
also keeping the feet to the fire. So
Right.
coaches like you with that experience are very much needed in the world. You mentioned something that always impresses me, Maria. Your background is really, really impressive. You
Thank
come
you.
from a very high-powered family. Everybody's involved in advocacy. But tell me a little bit about your experience in the White House, because there's such tumultuousness and such conversations going on now. What's the difference in the advocacy that you see between the White House then when you were working there and the White House now?
Well, I think, in fact, I know that we can say that there's stark differences, right? But in reality, everything is cyclical. We always say we have never seen this thing happen before in the history of America. Well, if we read history, we'll find out that no, there were members of Congress that got into blows, they were duking it out and all kinds of things. Members of Congress that brought in guns into the chambers. That's not happening today. But yes, there are some members of Congress and America in general, society, that have a different view of what the picture or the faces of America should look like today. And it seems that it's skewing or pushing against people of color, more of against brown faces. But we have an obligation. There's more than 70 million of us Latinos in the United States, like myself, like yourself, multi-generation Americans. So we have an obligation to continue contributing, to raising our voice, to adding to the narrative, and to say, let me share a little bit of our history. I shared with you in the past that my mother and all her family were part of the United States before that part of South Texas was part of the United States. So we're talking about the mid to late 1800s, right? So we have history. From one source or one way or another, those 70 million of us are here. 99.9% of us are great contributors. We wake up every morning with a desire to do our best to reach the American dream, much like the European brothers and sisters in this country did it and have done it for also a couple of hundred of years coming into this great land, right? So, well, things are a little different. The opportunity that I had to work in the White House in the early mid 1990s was a dream come true for a small number of individuals that can say, I work at the White House, right? It's a small number of individuals that can do that. Well, I am privileged to say that I had the opportunity to do that. I believe that the most important thing, and I know, was not taking for granted that opportunity, knowing how blessed I was every single day. When I walked through the halls of this still is amazing institution, I felt the power of my ancestors, what they felt through, decisions that they were making every day as they walked through those hallways. I was not a high power person at all, but I did contribute tremendously to opening doors for other minorities who were never invited to the White House. Well, by the grace of God, the individual that I work for, Susana Valdez, and at that time was also the Office of Hispanic Liaison. We looked at it and we said, how can we bring those voices that are so powerful at the local level and amplifying them at this national level, right? And we were able to do that. We brought them in for a couple of multiple actually sessions in the White House, therefore making them be part of the decision making process. And it was. So and their voices also contributed to the exchange of culture,
Mhm.
understanding of new ideas, uh, demystifying the fear of I don't know where you come from, therefore I'm going to put my walls against you. So
Mhm.
instead of that, we opened up the arms and said, at the end of the day, we all want a safe roof over our head. We want our children to have better opportunities than we did. I want to have a decent job or opportunity as an entrepreneur to make money and put not only food on my table, but take my children and my family on a vacation, own my home. And I want my voice to be heard and understand that we may look a little different by the color of our skin. We may have or share a little bit of a different culture and food, or how we got here, a little bit of our story is a little bit different. But at the end, we are the strongest pillars that make this country great collectively, each and every one of us.
You know, you inspire me every time I hear you speak, and you remind me that I need to do more and I have to stay on this path because advocacy is very important. So I have a couple of questions that I wrote down because I know we can go off and talk for hours, but we have a 30-minute limit. And I know
Right.
everybody would love to speak to you directly. And I just want to do a public service announcement for anybody that wants to get in touch with Maria Garza. I will share her email address, but you can reach her through Leadership in the Clouds. Go to our contact page, say, I want to reach Maria, I need to speak to her, and we'll make it happen. And we'll send her the information and she will contact you directly. So, Maria, I want to talk to you about advocacy. You know, a question that I had for you was what was the hardest moment in advocacy you faced and what helped you get going? I mean, what helped you get over that challenge, that barrier that you felt in advocacy?
Yeah. Well, in advocacy, there's a challenge. There's actually multiple challenges every single day, right? Because it means that you are speaking on behalf of something that you believe very strongly about. And in doing so, you are on a regular basis facing adversity. And how do you overcome that adversity? It's not easy. One of the things that I've learned early on in my professional career, it was that I had to be resilient. And looking back, I know I learned that resiliency because it was modeled by my grandmother to me. It was modeled by my mother, by my father, by my husband. Seeing what they do every time they face a tough situation. And we all have a say in Espanol that it says, no te ahogues en un vaso de agua. Do not
Yeah.
drown in a cup of water, right?
Mhm.
And it is so true. So seeing them overcome adversity time and time again, whether it was often an internal adversity, meaning an illness, meaning maybe a divorce, maybe not having enough money to make ends meet, or something external like bad weather that destroyed communities, like economies that just tank and you were part of it, not having anything to do with it, right?
Yeah.
uh, Things of that nature, shortage of workforce, if sometimes, meaning they were not hired, therefore they didn't have a job, or entrepreneurs, organizations, businesses not having enough people to do what they needed to do. A lot of times, a bad decision, maybe drugs or alcohol. I mean, there's been so many things, and in every one of them, you can find venues, channels for advocacy, as well as to how to overcome adversity. So, like I said to you, seeing my family, the resiliency, then through reading, right? You read all these amazing books. You read about Mother Teresa. You read about Rigoberta Manchu. People that, man, they really were against all odds.
Mhm. And
Yeah.
they made a difference. They impacted the society that they lived in and beyond.
Exactly. And in our local communities, we always have somebody, a mayor that lifted the flag and says, we're going to do X, whatever X was that wasn't popular.
Yeah.
In fact, yesterday, my heart was broken because a dear friend who you have met, G. Holmes Braddock,
Mhm.
the longest serving member of the school board in Miami-Dade County, passed away at
Mhm.
the age of 100, mind you.
Yes, yes.
An incredible uh, leader, trailblazer, a person that embraced minorities and opened the doors and broke down the barriers of segregation for that part of the world, did a lot of things. And I often, he's been a dear friend of our family. And I often ask him, like, what was going on when you were going through these? And he will share with me, like, how did you overcome it?
Is
Uh,
that the gentleman I met at Mac?
yes, yes, an
Yes, yes,
older
yes.
gentleman,
MAC,
Joe.
but for those of you that are watching that don't know what MAC stands for, it's the Mexican American Council, which Maria and her husband started over 40 years ago. And
Yeah.
it's going strong.
Yes. And but having friends like him, like you, Pat, there's wonderful skills that we can develop and we can learn from one another to overcome these types of adversity. And it doesn't happen overnight, but
No.
it's one little bite at a time. You know that once you become and you understand how to turn that key and make it successful, then the next time the wave comes and shakes you, you can stand strong because you've seen it, you've been through it, and you draw from those experiences, and then you can envision and map your way.
Mhm. You know, you talk about adversity, overcoming challenges. You know, it takes daily habits of making sure that you can overcome something. There's some strength that you have to pull from,
Right.
and it's a mindset. How
Yeah.
do you shift that mindset to help you rebuild your confidence in the workplace or in the eye of the storm, or even
Right.
after the storm?
Pat, that is the key or the answer to so many of our challenges, the mindset. If you get up in the morning thinking, I'm not going to make it, guess what? You're not going to make it. Whether it's health wise, whether it's walking 10 miles, whether it's achieving a new role, a new position, health wise, whatever it is. But that mindset, if you look around you, if you that are listening to us today, just look around you, there are hundreds, if not dozens, of great examples of individuals that you said, how did they made it? How was this possible? It's a mindset. And you develop that. Some people are born with it. Let me tell you, some people are just born with a mindset of a conqueror and a winner, like Alexander the Great, and they were just gonna go and gonna make it. Some others, like us and me, I have to work on it every single day. But I am a firm believer. One, my faith. My faith learned it, or inherited from my mother-in-law who lived to be 100. And up until the last day she passed on to be with the Lord, she would sing praises to God. And you would think, here's an elderly woman that is bedridden. How would she be singing praises to God? It's a mindset.
It
She
is.
was happy. She was satisfied.
How
She
old was
lived
she when she passed?
103.
Well, that's because she was happy. Happiness has a lot to do with it.
Exactly. So that mindset, there's exercises that you can do. There's mantras that you must recite every morning. There's disciplines of physical exercises that you must do. And I don't mean just killing yourself in the gym if that's not your thing. Sometimes that's not your thing and that's perfectly okay. But maybe you just walk around the block and you can only do half a block. And then you say, well, now I'm going to do a whole block. And the next thing you know, you got 3 blocks, right? Something as simple as that. If you're fortunate enough to be healthy and strong and you want to go to the gym, then knock yourself out. That will be great as well. Because your physical health equates or is similar to your mental health. Your wellness is always together.
You
So,
said something very key, and that's that socialization.
yeah,
You said it or not, it's the moments of isolation that we feel lost and everything. So, in moments of isolation or loss, what reminds you of the vision and what's worth it? What keeps you going and pursuing that vision that you have in your mindset? What
you
keeps
know,
you going in the moment? There's a lot of people in our community, in the Latino community, that are undergoing a lot of loss, a lot
mhm,
of isolation, a lot of
mhm,
fear. How do
mhm.
you overcome that? How do you what nuggets of wisdom can you share?
Patty, you're so right. Every literature, everything that we read tells us that we are social. Everything that we read tells us that we are social animals.
Mhm.
Therefore, we must always have a circle of friends. Whether you go to a place of worship, whether you go to the library, whether you spend time, con las comadres. Sometimes we say, I get chismosa. No, you just keep
Mm.
staying updated on all the new stuff that is happening. It's the news, right? So,
And even if they are chismosas and gossiping,
well,
it's just keeping up to date.
I like to say that you just stay informed of the latest news, right? The latest happenings, whatever it may be. So it is important to have a strong social circle of friends, those that will empower you. Ojo,
I
but be
also, I'm
careful
sorry.
because it is important to have the right circle of friends. Sometimes we are surrounded by family members that are very negative. Sometimes we are surrounded by childhood friends that are very negative. You need to make a decision and say, not today. Protect your space.
Mhm.
Protect your space. Otherwise, you will fall victim of of more sadness or inability to reach your dreams. To be a visionary, you must have an understanding that you can climb the mountain. That house on the top of the hill is yours. Go for it.
So give us some nuggets of wisdom. If you're stuck and you're trying to, you talk about the C-suite, you talk about people that are in leadership. The saddest place or the loneliest place I have found is to be a CEO of a company.
Yeah.
You have to be careful what you say, who you say to, and who is your inner circle. And even within the inner circle, who do you trust enough to get to the place that you need to drive you? So that vision, that conversation that you have with yourself, how do you come about it? How can you talk when we talk to leaders, we always share some nuggets of wisdom. So if you can give me just a couple of things that some CEOs can do that find themselves in a bind that they say, I can't change my people, I can't change my mindset because people look at our leaders
Right.
and they emulate what they do. So,
Hmm.
how can we change if we're not adaptable? I find a lot of
Oh,
my clients are not adaptable, and I tell them, you need to be flexible. And they said, I think I am, but they're not. They're very stuck in their ways. They say, my way or the highway. This works for me for the last 10 years. It's going to work for me for the next 10 years. How do you break that mindset there?
And you're absolutely correct. Well, I start by three basic non-negotiable uh, rules, right? You must be a person of integrity, because you talk about the CEO and the loneliness of that position, right? Whether you are a CEO of of a 5-person company or a large organization such as the one you and I collaborated in, right? An $80 million organization. Pet one, again, you must have integrity, which means you don't compromise. And those are non negotiables. Somebody's going to come to you and offer you bad deals. Somebody's going to come to you and ask you to look the other way or forget that an individual is not performing up to par. All kinds of things happen, right? You must always know that, can you face your family, your children, and have this continue with this conversation, right? Very important. Second is respect for self. If you respect yourself, you are not going to allow things to or things to be said in front of you, or for um, actions to take place in front of you either, right? Or you engage on nefarious actions, not you or anyone else, right? And then then is, who's your circle? You must protect that circle. You are making decisions that impact the livelihood of
Mhm.
hundreds, sometimes thousands of other individuals. Be educated. You gotta have the latest information, the latest know-how. So you gotta always be a well-read person. Take master classes. If you cannot go back to college, which is understandable, you don't have to, but you must stay informed on the latest of everything. How do you retain staff? So important. You spend so much money, any organization
Mhm.
spend so much money hiring staff. You want to keep them. But if you made a bad hire, you must act immediately. So the nugget is, don't wait to make decisions. You must be able to make decisions. And once you make the decision, it's done. Don't dread, especially if you're a mujer. Oh my God, as
Right.
mujeres, we always keep thinking, did I do the right thing? What would so and so done? It's
We
irrelevant.
second guess ourselves all the time.
It's irrelevant. You make
Yep.
the decision, own it, live with it.
Live with it.
99% of the time, you make the right decision because you have all this information. You're not making decisions on a vacuum. You're making decisions as an informed leader. You got all the data. Use data by all means, please, when you're making decisions. Always analyze it. Always look at the data. In my case, I always looked at 5-year trends.
Mhm.
3, I found them to be too short. 10, a little bit too long. So that data, that information, those analysis allow me to make decisions and forecast for the future, for the organization, for my peer mate, for my teammates, and so forth. So integrity, don't forget, respect for self, therefore respect for others. Use data. Stay educated. Be careful who is in your circle. Pat, one of the things that I'm sure you also have seen and learned from, since working in any position of leadership, folks get drawn to you, right?
Mhm.
Some for the right reasons, because they want to learn from you. They want to be part of a winning team. They see that you're going places. They want to be part of it. But a lot of times people come to you for the wrong reasons, nefarious reasons. They're just jealous and they don't know how to go about it. They take information and they disperse it the wrong way. So therefore, it's important. It is critical that you protect the circle of individuals who are your trusted individuals. And you got to have somebody.
You have
My
to have
case,
somebody.
I go back to my faith, a good prayer. I always had 1 or 2 individuals that I could go to and bounce ideas.
When we talk about social networks and social circles and things like that, I get a lot of CEOs that are not only looking for someone that to rely on and trust, but they also want to identify who's the architect of their demise. They
Mm.
always feel that somebody's after them. And there's conversations that I have had with CEOs that I say that. I said, well, if you could identify your circle and you could identify who's the architect that's after your demise, you're doing great because you know your people.
Right.
And they get shocked when I say that because they say, well, why would anybody want harm? I said, everybody's always trying to climb up the ladder.
And
And
you know
they
what?
see your position as maybe a stumbling block or a barrier.
And that's the reality, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you know what you have and what you're dealing with on a daily basis, then you know how to prepare. And that comes with a job. That's
Yeah.
not unique to, it comes, obviously it attacks more in leadership positions, but that comes with a job every single day. Somebody thinks that they can do it better than you, somebody that doesn't want you to get the promotions. And let's face it, at the end of the day, if there's only one post, one CEO, or one opening of leadership or whatever, a promotion, everybody wants it. So it's kind of acceptable in a way, or it is understandable. Maybe
It's
not,
it's part of
maybe
the
acceptable,
it's
but
part of the
understandable.
plan.
Yeah, understandable that
It's
people
part of the
may
game.
say,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
You know,
So
it's amazing that we have this conversation. We met each other through an opportunity that we were both drawn together by a third party who's part of the alliance, and it's just funny how this came together. So
right.
as we both work with leaders and we move them forward, I want to ask you this question because it's very pertinent. A lot of people are stuck in the place. What do you say to someone that's stuck in the storm or facing adversity right now? Whether it's a CEO at a company, an individual in a community, you know, you have a lot of people that are now struggling to raise funds for funds that are no longer there. Then they find out that they don't know what to do in this tumultuous environment we live in. But there has to be a calming of the storm in business. And sticking with business, how do you sell the idea that this is what you do when you face adversity, whether it comes internally or externally, and when you come to the leadership and the people in the C-suite? How do you have them stay fast, stay strong in the eye of the storm and facing adversity right now?
You know, when you're in the middle of a storm, Pat, and I have been in multiple storms, some more literally and figuratively. I have been through hurricanes, I have been through some floods, so I have been through some stuff. Um, and some are just, the nature of work. Here's the thing: you must remain calm. Take a deep breath. Unless it's a matter of life and death, then you are no longer in charge. You must know and you must recognize when you are out of your place and call the right uh, experts, to come and help if it's a matter of life and death. But if it's just facing the everyday thing, first of all, you prepare before. When we know bad weather is coming, we are made
Have a
aware of it.
contingency plan.
Right. We're made aware of it, so you have a contingency plan. So for bad weather. And in finances, if you're an entrepreneur, you're always told you must have a contingency plan. You must be able to sustain your household for 3 months, or your business payroll for 3 months before you go into trouble. So you must have a contingency plan. What does that do? If you prepare, which you must, when you are in a position of leadership, head of a household, you're in a position of leadership. You started your own business, you're in a position of leadership. You're a manager, mid-level manager, you're in a position of leadership. You're a student, that are leading a group, you're such. And if you're a CEO, well, more than, that's understandable. Then you are the person that makes the decision. So number one, you must prepare. That comes with it. Documents. What do you have to have ready for whatever is needed? The finances. What do you must do? Systems. If you have systems, you understand that you have a solid system for your finances. You understand that you have a solid systems of operations. How do you run the organization? How do you run your household? You know what? We have great systems in our homes. Nobody
Mhm.
can come and go as they please if they're teenagers. Mm-mm. This door closes at a certain time. And if you're not here, the door's closed.
Mhm.
As simple as that. Same thing, just move it forward. Operating systems, what are they? So Then now you find, now you prepare, you have everything ready to go. And now you're in the middle of the storm. The hurricane is coming, the wind is blowing, or worse yet, the board decided that you're not the one that they want there, or that there's conflict between the board, or the finances are not coming, the grant that you knew was coming, you lost it, the contract that you've been waiting so long for, they gave it to somebody else. That land that you were going to buy because you knew that's where you were going to build your next office, they sold it to somebody else. All kinds of wonderful or horrible storms
Yeah.
come by.
Yeah.
But remember,
You have
you
to be
already
prepared.
prepared for it. You already prepared for it. Take a deep breath. Bring your leadership team. It could be your spouse. It could be your attorney. You must have an attorney. It could be, your other members of the C-suite level. It could be your pastor. It could be, your religious leader, whomever it is. Who is your team? Bring it together, analyze what's going on, and then one day at a time. I can assure you, believe me, these two will pass. And then
Yep.
one day at a time, you will be able to make the right decisions because you have a system that you must trust, operating system that you must trust, financial system that you must trust, friends or leaders, advisors that you can trust, and then you're going to make the best out of it. Now, are you always going to win? No, no, you're going to lose. Be prepared for it, but you're mitigating that loss. You didn't get the contract. You might have to reduce staff. You might have to reduce hours of work. You might have to, not expand the space that you thought you were going to need, or you may need it, but you're not going to be able to rent that additional space. You wanted to give a bonus to your employees. You can't do that. So those are things or decisions that you're going to be able to do on a sound mind, not in a panic mind.
Preparedness. Always be prepared. And that's one thing I've always been is prepared. And I really appreciate you coming on Cloud Chats today, Maria. It's always a thrill hearing your thoughts. It's very informative. I take nuggets of wisdom. I know that I have a book already. I'm thinking about, okay, when you were talking about a certain thing, I said, okay, prepare, but also the advocacy. We're both very much into our community. I want to thank you for everything you do and what you're going to be doing. You know, um, I don't know what else to say to you, but buen provecho en todo lo que hace, amiga mía. Gracias por estar aquí hoy. Te lo agradezco. And as always, I'm always happy to have you on the show. For anybody wishing to reach Maria C. Garza, you can reach her through Leadership in the Clouds. She's an amazing force to be reckoned with, but also a trailblazer. There's a lot of stories that haven't been told today that comes from her background that makes her so resilient, perseverant. She also is a good friend and truth. The person that you see in front of you is the person you get. So
Mm.
that's it. Authenticity. That's what it's all about. So thank you for joining us at Cloud Chats. I'm Pat Martinez, and we'll see you in the clouds. Bye bye.